afternoon, everyone. As you may see, we're not a quorum. We are a quorum because we've just made ourselves a quorum. Unfortunately, Emma can't join us today, so we have two esteemed panelists sitting alongside me this afternoon, and we are, I think others say, holding up from lunch, holding up from drinks. Today, we're holding up from coffee. So we will try to make this as involved as possible. So what I'd like to do first of all, I'll introduce myself. My name is Marcus Bates. I'm Vice President at Aptar Digital Health, responsible for global business development. And I'll hand over to Adela.
Thank you, Marcus. Adela Schulz, Strategy and Operations, Omnichannel Lead for Rheumatology at HCP Pharma.
Yeah, and very similar. My name is Parker Richardson. I lead Omnichannel Strategy and Operations for Astellas.
Great stuff. Thank you.
And as you said, whilst we don't have a fourth panelist, right, but if anybody has not just at the end, but any good ideas or whatever ideas to contribute, let's have you be part of our panel. That works fine.
So that's our goal. So we'll lead off with a couple of questions, and obviously, should anything come up, and I'm not sure whether Daria and the team are fully prepped, but if someone could be ready with a microphone, and please feel free to stick up a hand, and actually we can maybe make this interactive before we go and have our caffeine hit. So we talked a little bit earlier about understanding our customer. So Daria, did we manage to get a Slido put together? Daria, did we manage to do the Slido? Can we just get the Slido put up here? So we'd like to understand who we've actually got out here today. So if you could just please quickly just scan the Slido if you haven't done so already, and just let us know.
It's just one answer.
So we only have one person.
Yeah, it's 100%
so
for the one. Good job. Yeah, that's good.
Or everyone else has disappeared out to the sunshine or to the academy stage.
Yeah. You know, the old school way is to raise your hands, but figure we'll go omnichannel, right? Just to be in good practice of what we're doing.
Upgrade it.
So, yeah, that's good.
Number of answers.
All right, 47, that's great.
Nice. Sales and marketing leading, followed by medical technology vendors.
So Marcus and I had a bet too that it's more marketing ops than marketing. So you're going to make me lose a bet here if it is truly all marketing, but I guess that's okay. That's all right.
So let's crack on then. So what's the title of the panel today? So the title of the panel here is The Art of Great Timing and How Can You Accelerate Your HCP and Customer Engagement. So if we're going to start off with really an entry-level question for one. So if I'll ask you first, Adela, and then I don't know if you pass over to Parker. So when it comes to tools, methodology, and approach that you do today, and what is your approach when in terms of trying to make sure you get in front of the HCP at the right time and when it's relevant?
I'm going to start by saying something really groundbreaking, revolutionary. There is no one size fits all. There is no one size fits all. So what is our approach? What is my approach? I often like to, and you might have heard me in the past, I like to speak in terms of people, process, technology, or mindset, skill set, tool set. And so everything starts with the mindset. So what's the approach you get in front of the customer? Putting yourself in the mindset of, I'm here to provide value in the first place. It's not about me as a company and my products first, it's about providing value. And I guess, as we're saying it here, everybody will be like, oops, sorry. Of course, you're preaching to the converted. I have to say, since I moved out of the sort of digital cell in my previous companies into the business, in the day-to-day business, it's something that still requires a lot of change. So really to think about, as an example, because I'd like us to be really concrete. If you think about a congress, right? So international or national congress, everybody will communicate to those 4 HCPs around a congress. And then typically you go like, well, you will want to communicate about you in the first place, right? So I'll be there, I'll have X number of simpos, an amazing booth, I don't know how many abstracts. Okay, you do need to do that. But put yourself in the shoes of the customers. How can you help them give them value. So you think about, there is an upcoming 4-day congress, and as us here, there's an overwhelming amount of information that they will need to take in those 4 days. So what could you provide them that could help them maximize their learnings, their takeaways of that overflow of information? As an example, what we've done is to think, okay, we'll think about the most important sessions in that congress, and we'll send them some pre-reads that will help them better understand what they will hear on site. So for example, looking at the KOLs that are staging some of the sessions at the Congress, looking what they have published recently, because mostly they will be talking about what they have published recently, and summarize that in an easy-to-digest format. Of course, you need to have partner agencies. In our case, we were looking at SciencePod, the great company that helps to summarize into complicated scientific information and make it bite-sized. But that's one example. Now, that's a very concrete tactical example. Of course, and this comes now to skill set and processes, you need to take a bigger view, so taking more of a structural approach. What we do is and what I recommend is, really look at what are your customer segments, and how do you need to engage with them differently, right? And that's about everything from, what are their function? Are they healthcare? Are they doctors? Are they nurses? Are they payers? Of course. Within those segments, are there micro segments that you can identify based on data, based on how they engage with you in the past? Were they engaging more with your product information? Were they engaging more with medical education? What type of medical education were they engaging with? So really looking at, really spending a lot of time on understanding your customer. That's our key approach on then executing the tactics.
Fantastic. I've got a follow-up to that, but I'll go over to Park and then I'll just come back with
No, it's really practical. So, hopefully that's appreciated in the response to the practicality of that. Could you repeat the question, though? I'm just kidding. Look, I want to address maybe a couple things. I think, first of all, a confusing part of the question, a controversial part, and then I'll come to the practical part. So I think a confusing part is, part of your question mentioned time, like how do we make sure we get to them at the right time? And when we first started talking about this, I think we all think at the right time, meaning like Monday or Thursday at 2. Sometimes we think about when am I supposed to engage at the right time. But I think when I started to reflect on what we mean by time is, we're not always, and not just us as consumers, but even our customers, HCPs and patients alike, they're all going through their own journey at their own time, at their own stages, and in their own progress. So what we may think of as very traditionally time could actually be a very different concept and needs to be rather flexible to meet customers on their own journey. So I think we have to take time to be a little bit less specific when we say time, and that's not Thursday at 2 o'clock. It's a little bit, and this may be terrible context, so I apologize, but I'm from Arkansas in the United States, and if anybody remembers the old Bill Clinton quote, it depends on the definition of is. It's kind of like depends on the definition of time, like in this case. So what do we mean? It's just about being in front of them at the right time when they're going to make that, or when they're going to have that need for the information to really make a better informed decision, and that can be really difficult. So I think we need to loosen a bit on what we mean on time. The controversial part, if I can say, is the other part of your question mentioned when it's relevant to them. And I love that term specifically because let me do a quick old school poll by show of hands. Are you team relevant or are you team personalized or personalization? So how about show of hands? Team personalization, I'm a big fan of personalization, or I'd rather seek relevancy.
Isn't it the same?
That's the controversial part. Yeah? Okay, so we got 2 hands up here up front. It's really actually hard to see. These lights are really bright. So I don't really know what anybody voted.
I think we were more relevant than personalized.
Thank you for voting. I think some hands went up. But look, I think you're right. It's a little bit the same, but this idea, we've been talking about this for years. Like, we need to personalize our content. We need to personalize our journeys. I think in reality, I'm not sure that's a bar we can actually achieve. I mean, to be quite honest. Maybe, maybe not. I can certainly put your name in an email. I can definitely do that. Is that enough? Is that what I mean? And part of this, and where I'll circle back now to the practical part of the question, is as we start to think about relevant content or even personalized, if that's how you feel more strongly, the idea here is simply about planning. And so if you're in marketing or in medical or tech ops and IT, I think the question for you with your internal stakeholders is, do you have some kind of way to plan on how you engage customers at the right time with the right message? And that's where we start to get in this other conversation about The right time for me may be with a certain type of message, and the right time for you may be with a certain type of other message. And if I'm not planning, or if I don't have any kind of specific way to plan for that, and if I'm still following the one-size-fits-all approach to marketing, it's not going to matter when your message is there on a Thursday at 2 or at a Monday at 10, because you won't be speaking in a language that the customer needs to hear it. And that's, I think, a huge problem in pharma marketing. So I'll give you a little bit of a challenge to take back, and then we'll get on to the rest of the questions. How many of you are actually creating differentiated content based upon a little bit what you talked about, what you know about your customer groups, whether you call them segments or personas or something else? Are you actually creating, awesome, and let's celebrate you guys, good job. Are you actually creating, can you tangibly show me 2 different pieces of content that address somebody because you know something different about those audiences? On the whole, I don't think we do it, and I think we can have a couple of follow-on conversations with a few of you who are, because I think as an industry it's something we need to be a lot better at. And if you don't have that built into your planning mechanisms or processes, then that's a gap I think you need to fill inside your own companies.
Maybe I'd like to add 2 dimensions, just building a little bit, because you gave me some ideas whilst you were speaking. So again, being very, very concrete. Yeah. So there's different dimensions of timing, as you just said, right? And what time of the day somebody receives something, which is also interesting to know. And then, thanks to Einstein's spend time optimization, we can already customize that, so that's good. But yet timing, where in the customer journey speaking adoption ladder is a HCP right now? Are they in the problem unaware, so they don't even know that there's a problem, everything is fine today? Have they moved away? Did they understand that there is a problem? So beyond just feeling the symptoms, did they understand that really there is a tangible problem? Did they hear about your product? Do they even know it exists and that it actually solves that problem that they identified? Are they even further in the stages? So depending on in which stage the physician is, obviously you need to bring them different content. And for that you need to first, to track them and to have them. I mean, this comes on the tool set part, and the boring but important one, to really have them, to tag them in which category they are, and then take them on a journey. That was one, and then I had the second one, but I can keep it for later on.
Okay, so if we just come back, going a little bit off piece, if we just come back to when we talked, Adela, you just gave the example of in a congress, 4-day congress, etc. So do you currently, and you talked about targeting, they're very busy, do you currently target them at a specific time in the day? Do you have tools? Do you utilize that? Or is it just identifying the right KOL ahead of Congress and just messaging them through a regular channel at 24 hours before, 12 hours before? Or are we able now to get more specific in even identifying that, okay, KOL A, he's probably more engaged at lunchtime, and this piece is relevant to him in the afternoon on day 2.
So there's a multitude of answers or of ways of thinking and answering this question. I guess the most straightforward thinking is indeed, do they engage rather with reps in office hours, outside of office hours, at what time are they opening the emails? And here I think most of us, whether we're using Salesforce Marketing Cloud, Marketo, whatever, marketing automation technology we may be using, we've got the tools there to already personalize segment of one, right? So that's one element. But then looking at the more macro level in terms of timing, going back to the good old Congress example, well, timing, if you think about, you would want to help your physician to maximize their learning output from a Congress, then the best timing may be to send them content that will help them better understand the Congress, to better contextualize the Congress content in advance. And then again, no one size fits all, right? Because some may engage with that content and some may not. Or another example, very concrete of timing is, you do a peer-to-peer webinar, for example, right? And you hopefully use a technology that allows you to track data. And you know that Professor XYZ has answered these XYZ polls, or they have asked this and that question during the webinar, well, then you understand sort of what you would like to hear more information about. And then if you've got your infrastructure right, you'll have that information flow into the CRM. If you've got your team's upskill right, the field force representative will know that the information is there and that he or she will be able to look it up. And then after the webinar, he or she could go to their customer and bring them this information which we saw they were looking for more to find out more. So it's all about contextualization, I would say.
Yeah, I'm happy to build on this if you don't mind. So what we're doing is in order to accelerate omni-channel execution inside of a lot of our affiliates is we picked priority markets, party brand over the last year or so, and have put some real specific, I guess you'd call them more micro journeys than broader journeys, and have tried to create a series of steps, almost a little bit like consumers are treated, in a way of how we're engaging with our customers. And interestingly, what we found was, as we started to put this in front of home office teams, and this was cross-functional by design, we found that a lot of them gravitated as a first step towards event-based situations. So whether that's a small local event, or it's more of a congress or something else, for the reasons you just mentioned, there's a whole lot that you can do around it. And so very tangibly, we found that people could really embrace this idea of omni-channel execution specifically towards an event. And what we're doing as we've evolved from there is that's now morphing into a collection of, maybe to go slightly against, a collection of almost like one-size-fits-all applications towards a Congress as an organization, to say that, you know, I know I've got this customer that's going to this event, or this customer going to this Congress, and so part of enrolling them in that, or part of that package, includes dropping them into, if I can say it that way, this micro journey where we have by cadence a bit of a standard way of engaging and making sure that we're providing more value. Because what we've found in all of this and other experiments or experiences is that where the weak spot sometimes is represented most is when a human has to get involved in either remembering to do something or making a decision, or just knowing that there's a capability that exists out there. So now if we can introduce as a global capability this micro journey as part of an event, all of a sudden you take a bit of the guesswork out of the hands of either the rep or the marketer or the MSL or whoever. And we at this point, that's still, for us, returning value. We see a higher level of customer engagement coming through these events. We see a higher level of return and exchange of either registrations online or event registrations, or even downloads of some of the information that follows. So I think very, very tangibly, it's a great place to start if you're trying to figure out where I can start my omni-channel journey. And now we're trying to expand from there. So great. Events worked really well. How do we make that more of a broad capability for our customers?
Thank you. And a presentation, I think it was 2 presentations ago, there was reference to the reduction in number, I think it was neurologists, that there are per capita. There's going to be 24 down to 17 moving forward. So we continue to see increasing pressure on the HCPs. We continue to see potentially an aging population in the HCP. How do you guys address that in terms of how are you evolving your approach when it comes to trying to provide content in the most concise, should we say, time-relevant way possible?
Yeah, I probably don't have a great answer. I'll give you an answer, and maybe this is a good one for the audience actually too. So if you guys want to think about this one, we'll come to you with any audience thoughts on this one. You know, for us, a slightly different version of that question that's going around in our company is, well, if I've got a smaller target audience of maybe like a rare disease, or just a smaller group of physicians who treat that either in a country or in the world, why do I need omni-channel? Like it's a few more, I can really do something with those specifically. So do we really need all this stuff? Do we really need this approach? Of course, my perspective is we do, and I can defend that and talk about why that's important and how the smaller audience actually helps us be able to more proactively target and talk with specific individuals, back to that segment of one idea. But I think it's a very similar challenge, you know, so how do you change against sort of other various demographics? And for me, my answer probably goes back to a bit the first one of really understanding the customer in that planning exercise based on adoption, what I know about them, how it's different, and how I can message against that would be a bit my response. So I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, very much aligned, and I don't, I mean, if I'm taking, again, a very concrete example, you know, working in rheumatology, it's a typical example where there's a big scarcity of rheumatologists, so they're really overwhelmed with a high number of patients. So you think that, you know, they'd have they'd have less time. At the same time, there's a bit of a contradiction there because they're also compared to other therapeutic areas. Dermatologists, for example, they're quite traditional in terms of, I mean, I'm now making a generalization, I know, so it's just a generalization. So they tend to prefer traditional channels, rep visits. It's a bit of a contradiction because you think if they're so busy and they have their rooms full of patients, then, you know, they would maybe prefer other ways of working. But again, these are all generalizations. I think what we see, generally speaking, is that you know, there is demographics will make things change. So there we do see, I guess, across therapeutic areas a difference. And overall, you know, I think we're all in a situation where there is so much information to consume nowadays, and specifically in the medical space, right? I know there's some crazy numbers in terms of how many new studies are coming out every day, and compared to, I don't know the numbers by heart, but so there is more information to consume to keep up to date career-wise, whilst time is becoming more and more scarce. So obviously the only real solution to that is summarized information, right? And that's ChatGPT and other sort of more advanced GPTs that will come out in the weeks and months and years to come, that basically summarize, you know, 15-page publications into just a one-pager of what is most important. So summarization, I mean, bite-sized information is the response, I would say.
Okay. Oh, we have a question.
I have a question, because I think we're shifting away from the great title, which is great timing, and we're into omnichannel. So can we go back to timing, please? Because I personally want to know, how do you use omnichannel to capture that timing moment that the physician is really interested in you? Example, the CRA walks in, your CRA, and finds out that the study is still not approved. The rep walks in and the doctor asks a question off-label. So you have somebody from your field force there, but at that moment there's a question for another part of your organization. That's a great timing, because at that time there's a question, so your customer is willing to listen. Today we don't use that. And then there's the other moment when the physician has a question to you, when your staff member is not there. I give an example, an x-ray comes in or a lab result. And at that moment I say, oh shit, he's on that drug. Could that come from that drug? I want, at that moment, as a physician, I want. So how are you using Omnichannel to capture those great timing moments? And I have not seen you address that yet.
What are your thoughts?
So yeah, no, look, I'm happy to talk through that. I mean, I think a lot of that is about equipping your teams to have the capability to address those when they come up. You've mentioned a couple of examples that are fairly organic. So how do I make sure that my representatives, in that case, my sales rep walks in, the physician is willing to listen to an answer, but it's got to come from somebody else. So what does my sales rep do? Are they trained on using Viva Engage to connect back to an MSL? Is there somebody on staff who's always available for that? Because you have that moment. That, for us, is going to be a little bit country specific, but it's certainly a capability you want your teams to have. I don't know if anybody's begun to use Engage Connect as another option, but that's a bit of a push-pull technique if you want to experiment with that solution. And apologies if I'm overstepping and pitching somebody else's solution, but that's out there too. I think the other opportunity you've got that is something we're extending off of the journeys, I mentioned earlier, the micro journeys, is really in those journeys identifying triggers. Triggers represent that timing element. So I don't know when you're going to be ready for this, but I will know that you're ready for this based on you doing something else. And so based on an action there, do I have something else that can automate or orchestrate based upon that? The reality is all of our channels, and depending on your role and what you're doing, and that's why we ask, you may or may not know what your channel capabilities are in your own organization. So I'd encourage you to have a conversation, if you don't know, with your tech or whatever you call it, partners, to really understand what your channels can do. I mean, the very basics are the time your email was sent and opened or clicked through, right? So like the Monday at 10 or Thursday at 2 is a real thing. If we're all sending them at the same time, what do you think is going to happen, right? So find something that makes you unique. But I'd really address the question just based on triggers and capabilities. I think you've got to proactively think about how you create an organization that's ready and able to respond. And I think those are some great practical challenges that we have in the world today.
We've managed to answer and nearly get to the end without using the word or the...
No,
we're not doing it.
We're not going to do it. It's the only session today.
I think in addition to all these triggers, I think it also comes back a lot to the very basic human collaboration. So it's super important, just talking now about the field team, you know, that feel that commercial reps work super closely with their medical colleagues, with their access colleagues, but really like having their phone numbers on WhatsApp, being able to immediately bring them in a discussion if it's needed. I mean, these are really basics, but they make a difference.
And sorry, I know we got one more question. Also very basic is request a rep. All of your websites can have a request a rep thing on it. Super simple
all
and
websites,
easy.
all emails, all webinars.
Whether it's MSL or rep, and that can be, but you've got to build that into your infrastructure in your organization.
So we have got Manaz, we've got a question there.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to contribute because we personalize content, and I think there's two things that works for us. One is you need to use proper account management. You can't personalize for everyone. You personalize for people who make fundamental decisions because you can't waste marketing time. And what we find is being really clear about who you personalize, who you don't personalize actually makes us more effective.
Yeah.
The other thing we do is there's high trust between marketing and sales, or people who are responsible for account management, and we ask for content that they trust us, that we can use as a template and personalize. So the core template is approved, but there's element that we can personalize for individuals. And the marketing trusts us that would follow the SOP and use it in that way. And I think you need to have trust between sales and marketing to be able to achieve prioritized personalization. And when you do that, you can change decisions really fast, and you get HCPs to actually value other people to support to get your product on the formulary or drive therapy reviews and see you as a trusted advisor.
It's great. Thanks for adding.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Great.
And with that,
Time is up.
it
Crocodiles are
tells us
coming.
now you sit up here, you see it's in bright red telling us our time is up.
Yeah.
So unless there's any other questions, coffee.